Lie on your back with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor, pointed straight ahead, parallel to each other. Put a block or a pillow between your knees. Make sure that the block or the pillow is between 4 to 6 inches in diameter, and that the block or the pillow is firm enough so that when you press in against it, it doesn't have the ability to actually squish in. Bring your arms out to your sides at a 45-degree angle from your body with your palms face up. Using about half of your strength, squeeze your knees inward into the block and then release, on and off. You should feel the work in the muscles on the insides of your legs as well as the hip flexors. Balance and symmetry check. Do you feel muscles working in one side of the body that are not working the same in the other side of the body? Do you feel like one leg is pushing into the block or the pillow firmer than the other leg? Or do you feel like the timing of how they press into the block is off? Either way, take notes and recognize that this should change and become more symmetrical from left to right as time goes on. Very lightly contract the muscles of your glutes, your butt muscles, on and off. Notice how you can't see anything else in the body, including the pelvis, moving as the contractions are happening. That's because you only want those muscles to be doing the work. Your pelvis should not move. If you notice that your back is flattening to the floor every time you squeeze, you're probably squeezing too hard and you need to lighten it up. Keep your stomach muscles completely relaxed throughout the duration of this position. Make sure you get a full squeeze, hold for a second, and then completely relax between each squeeze. Balance and symmetry check. Take notes of how the differences between the left and the right legs are as you're doing the squeezing. Does one glute work when the other one does not? Or is the timing off? Does one glute squeeze sooner than the other glute? This should even out over time. Place the bottom soles of the feet together and allow your knees to relax and drop out to the sides. At first, try to keep your feet as close to your hips as possible. If they start to slide away from you, just allow them to go wherever they comfortably slide to and then leave them there. Your knees are going to drop out to the sides and everything in your body should be relaxed. As your knees drop out to the sides, you might notice that there is an arch, a slight arch, in your lower back. That is okay. Your arms should be just out to your sides with your palms face up at a 45-degree angle from your body. Relax completely in this position for the recommended amount of time. Balance and symmetry check. Do you notice a difference in how far one leg moves than the other? Is one knee closer to the floor than the other? You might feel a stretch or some kind of sensation in the muscles of the hip on one leg that's different than the ones on the other. Of course, these are asymmetries showing up and should even out over time. Lie on your back with your knees bent and feet flat on the floor in front of you. Make sure the feet are parallel to each other and pointed straight ahead. Put your hands out to your sides, about 45-degree angle from your body with your palms face up. You're going to take the ankle of one leg and cross it over to the knee of the other leg. What you want to do from this point is press the knee of the leg that you crossed over away from you using the muscles on the outside of that hip. Be very careful when you're pressing this knee away from you to make sure that you do not allow your hips to swing out to the side. You must keep your hips and pelvis in a neutral position and prevent any movement there. You're going to hold for the recommended amount of time, keeping your upper body relaxed, then switch sides and repeat. Balance and symmetry check. Take notes on the differences of how it feels to cross one ankle over to the other knee because it might be different from one side to the other. Recognize the muscles that are working as you press one leg out versus the other. And also pay attention to any differences in how far that knee can move or your hip can open up from one side to the other. Over time, these asymmetries should even out. Go onto your hands and your knees on the floor with your knees directly under your hips and your hands directly under your shoulders. From here, you're going to walk your hands forward between 5 and 6 inches. Then shift your weight forward so that your shoulders are directly over your wrists. Don't let your shoulders pass your wrists at any point during this exercise. At this point, there will be just over 90-degree angle at the hips. Using the muscles at the front of the hips, you're going to tip your pelvis forward to place an arch in your lower back. Once you've done this, let your shoulder blades completely collapse together as your chest sinks closer to the floor. Make sure that you do not bend your elbows while you're doing this. This might be tricky at first, as depending on how your shoulders move, your elbows are really going to want to compensate and not let you do both at the same time. This should get better over time, but make sure that you do not sacrifice by bending the elbows. Once you've got the shoulder blades dropped, the elbows are straight, and your pelvis is tipped forward, allow your head to completely drop and hang. You're going to hold this position for the recommended amount of time. If you have trouble or pain being on your wrists or your hands, you can drop down to your elbows. The rules here are slightly different. You want to make sure that your elbows are directly under your shoulders to start. They should be shoulder width apart. But you're going to separate your hands wider than your shoulders. Keep the palms facing each other. This time, you're going to shift your weight back slightly so that your hips go over your knees. Once you're there, tip your pelvis forward so that you have an arch in your lower back and use the muscles in the front of your hips to do so. Allow your shoulder blades to collapse, keeping your elbows at shoulder width and your hands further apart. Let your head drop and hold this position for 1 minute. Balance and symmetry check. Pay attention to any differences that you feel on one hip versus the other hip. Do you notice that it's easier to get one of the hips to work than the other? Or do you notice that you can't feel your hips working at all? Do you feel a difference in how easy it is for one shoulder to glide and move versus the other? Maybe you notice that one elbow doesn't bend as much as the other. Do you notice tension in the wrist on one side versus the other, or both wrists? Do you notice pain or discomfort on one side of your back versus the other, or maybe both sides of your back? Either way, take notes, and remember, these are all asymmetries showing up in the body that should even out over time.